Welcome back to another edition of the Pear Genius Podcast. I can't help but smile every time we hit the record button. It's
It's better because we used to hit the record button and we would just start laughing right away. So
Yeah,
we've
of
moved
course.
beyond that to just smiling.
eventually we'll hit the record and be like, "Meh, meh, here we go again."
I
love
hope
it.
not.
Our whole life is being recorded, but no, welcome back. And today we have the amazing Crystal Sayers, local to us, but yet we're still on Zoom.
Yeah, well, the thing about energy work and healing is that you can do it across the World Wide Web. It can be on any corner of the planet, really.
Absolutely.
I don't know
Yes.
anything about Crystal. So, Crystal, just pretend like I am everybody else out there and tell me who the heck you are.
Oh boy, that's like a loaded question in itself. Yeah, so I actually grew up in BC in Canada, and I've been in Calgary since about 2007. So prior to that, actually, I've come from a Christian background. Not necessarily all of my family, but that was my faith choice, and so I actually was a missionary for almost 10 years overseas. So I've worked with lots of teams, and then in addition to that, when I came back to Canada, I've spent many, many years in social work and burnt out many times throughout this whole process, even during doing my missionary work as well. And in 2020, when the lockdowns took place, that was actually an opportunity for me to shift careers. I was a declared mess myself. So I was like, okay, I'm burnt out, I'm tired. My former husband and I, we had moved, we sold our house, we had to start over due to some medical situations that he was dealing with and couldn't work. And so there was just a lot of things going on. And 2020 was kind of my reset. And that also got me into the body talk career and starting to work with energy. And because I had been through my own situation and was going through stuff, and I had chronic physical pain as well. And so I really wanted something that was more holistic in approach. I definitely found that, counseling was helpful, but I wanted something that was more like body, mind, and spirit. And so this was the beginning of what I would call exploration, adventuring, unraveling. My life sort of definitely took a turn that I was not expecting because I've always been such a sincere person of faith, and I still am, but I would say that I've expanded outside of the Christian, sort of what would be acceptable within Christianity, although that some of those things are changing too, which is really interesting. But yeah, so I've always heard spirit or God from a very young age. And I've had times when I ignored that, that voice got me into more trouble. But overall, yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. And so now in terms of what I do everything from a lot of the work that I do is very intuitive. So I've really worked with developing my own intuition. Body talk was the beginning of that. So it's very consciousness-based healthcare. So it deals with the body, the mind, and the spirit. And so because our beliefs and our perceptions and the conditioning of our families and society has had such a huge impact and has a huge impact on our physical, emotional, mental well-being, this is what really drew me to Body Talk, because we're looking at the deeper things that cause, or the underlying causes of illness and disease. Which is often stress. And stress is, we all can relate to different forms of stress, even if it's positive. So that was the beginning of things really shifting for me. And I noticed within a very short period of time of experiencing some body talk sessions, and then I went into training. Within 2 weeks, my stress decreased by about 50. And I was like beyond the point of burnout. And so I just remember when I learned this, the very first technique that I learned was called the cortices technique, which people can find on my website. Actually, it helps to calm the brain. It initiates the healing process and helps to begin to support the body in initiating new processes and things like that. And so I just remembered I was doing that, maybe 4 times a day because I was really, really stressed. I had a lot going on, and we downsized and moved into a basement suite at the time. And so it was very small. And anyway, and I just remember waking up one day, it was maybe 2 or 3 days after starting to just do this one technique. I woke up and I just went, everything's going to be okay. And it was like the first sort of moment, even though my circumstances had not changed, I just woke up having hope for my life and for things to really shift. And now I see miracles in people's lives every day. So I do intuitive work, I do readings, I do channeling, I do Akashic records, body talk. I've also created I just say spirit and I have created another technique where I'm wanting to teach people how to help themselves heal and help their families in a way that's fairly, cheap. And yeah, and so I do coaching. I do a combination of things like, Kati, you've experienced that. It's kind of a mix of several things. And I find right now that I'm working with a lot of people who are really ready to move through their trauma and through like deep emotional patterns and things like that. And so I'm really all about empowering people. I really don't want people, like, I'm happy for people to come and see me, but I'd much rather empower people to help themselves. So that's my long introduction.
You know what? And it's fun. I've seen you twice now. I didn't know a lot of the story that you just shared. And I was just thinking about the other day, how important is the story to somebody's personal brand, And I think that it is extremely important. However, I kind of bypassed that because what I was looking for was a co-healer. So I think it's really important for people to know you're not doing all the work by yourself, but that we, as the people coming to you, have to show up ready to kind of have that co-creative healing flow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would never call myself really a healer, even though you might see on my card, it'll say energy healer because people get what that means. I really see everything that I do as a collaboration with the person because we're dealing with their consciousness. So even if they're not consciously aware, oh, I'm coming, they might be like, you might be coming, I want to resolve this issue, but actually the thing that's behind it often is the thing that we're looking at. So we can really come to a place of resolve and being able to change and move things forward. But that's not me. And so part of the learning, even going through body talk, is learning you're not the healer. You're the observer. You're the witness. You're the facilitator. You are the collaborator with that person. So even if I was to do a session with somebody, whether it be remotely or them in person, if I ever got a no as I tune into them, to their body and to their innate wisdom, if I ever got a no, I would say, we're not moving forward right now because this is really about integrity, and that person may not be ready to shift whatever is asking to be shifted. And so there's ways around, to move through that with that person. And sometimes just helping them come into the awareness then brings the strength in terms of the partnership related to the growth and the movement and the healing and that kind of thing. I see it over and over again. And it's, as a practitioner, right, it's so important to be really a person of honesty and integrity, just because somebody is wanting to come for some reason. It's not really my responsibility to heal them. They're healing themselves. And I'm helping them to see or to witness. We're witnessing together what is needed to be seen.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm very sensitive to bullshit. I'm just super sensitive to it. So the first time I met you, I was just kind of walking through Amaryllis, which is our local crystal energy shop. And I was with my daughter and my friend, and my daughter is very difficult to read, very difficult. So when you nailed her as fast as you did with the reading, she right away became very emotional. And I'm watching this happen and I'm like, okay, hold on, what's happening here? And then you nailed me. I'm like, okay, all right. I'm a little bit easier to read. But she is very difficult. So I'm like, okay, there's something here, And then when I came to see you the first time, it was a physical problem. 2024 was the year of digestion or lack of, And so
it really was.
By month 12, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I need help. And I came to you, and I know it's going to be TMI, but I pooed for a week straight after I saw you.
Yay!
It was so incredibly amazing. And then the second time I came to see you, it was not for physical help, but I knew I was still coming to the right place. And then sure enough, there was that thing that was said that was like, and ever since, it's like you were saying about feeling hopeful, there's this moment of miraculous hope. And I woke up and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I'm like looking at him like, are you ready? Because you're coming with me.
Is that true, Alex?
It's very true. And this is before I've had coffee or she's had coffee. So I know it's a good sign.
Okay, that's amazing. And I'm so happy for you. I mean, truly, the state of our Constitution has such a huge impact on our mental, emotional, physical well-being, like in so many ways. So we underestimate the power of the poop.
Right? Oh my goodness.
It's one of the very first things that I talk to people a lot about, actually, because that's something they need to take control or responsibility over, as to how are they managing, right? And what can they do, right? So those physical elements, addressing that physical thing, but understanding that there's a much deeper component with that, and that whole thing around releasing the waste in our life, whatever is not serving us, right? And so sometimes people go, it's like, okay, so what is it that I'm holding on to, or what am I feeling like I don't have control over, right? It has a huge, just those two questions means a lot. There's a lot of meaning. It's like a picture that tells 1,000, there's 1,000 words that go with that picture. In the same way, even just one type of thing that's happening within the body has many, many different meanings, even just from a consciousness based space, in terms of our beliefs, our prejudices, our conditioning, all of those things, right? And so there's an opportunity that when we're having these kinds of experiences or disruption or even emotional things, for us to really learn, like, what does it mean? What is my body and what are my emotions trying to tell me, so that I can actually grow and move forward, right? And it's meant to give us hope. It's like, hey, something needs to shift,
And it
So that's
somehow makes
beautiful.
a difference to hear from your own body. Like you were speaking on behalf of my
Huge.
body, because I was not hearing it for some reason. And I'm pretty good at
Mm.
listening to my body, but I was just missing it. And it took you to come in and say, oh, wait a minute. Your adrenal gland is so tired. And I felt so bad for my adrenal gland. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know I could feel that bad for a body part.
Right, right. Well, and I think part of this too, you just bring up a really interesting thing, and that is to truly give ourselves the level of compassion. We might give that to someone else, but we actually don't do that. And our body is always working so hard to bring balance, whether that be emotions, our mental well-being, our physical well-being, even in a sickness, even if a person, had a cancer diagnosis or something, to understand and appreciate that the body is actually always, always, always working to bring balance and harmony, but it may not be doing a good job. And so this is where these things, get, sort of discombobulated, or systems are not functioning. And the same thing happens, in so many ways in our lives, right? So it's like, oh, so what else is out of balance? And that's how I like to, it's rather than thinking, oh, something is wrong with me. What's wrong with me? Right? Would we have this sort of that conditioning too, right? It's like something is wrong. What if we came from the perspective of something is saying that it's out of balance, right? And so that is a much softer way of being able to sort of reframe something that just doesn't feel good, right? Within the body, or even our emotions or mental health. So spiritual health.
I think the vast majority of us would agree that we push ourselves to the absolute limits until our body tells us we just can't do it anymore. And that it's almost a crime against yourself, that we live in this day and age where you kind of have to suck it up and be a big girl or be a big boy and not complain until your body just absolutely gives up. And
Yeah.
it's good to listen to yourself and recognize these things, and then go get the maintenance before the whole motor explodes. Put an
Right.
oil change in, and then keep it going for unlimited amount of range, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy, because when you were mentioning the your past with the social work, so I would say that that's probably the most common thing is social workers. They're very passionate about what they do, and when they get burnt out, it's because of they're putting so much into it, and they're just not getting what they want out of it because of either bureaucracy or people are just awful to each other, and there's all these things. So it would be really amazing if you like helped so many social workers not burn out because we need them in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say this, that probably most people who are, so I didn't have like a social work diploma or anything like that, but that was the field I was in. So I was like working with the homeless, working with women coming out of sexual exploitation, addictions, like all special needs, all the things. And and I think, there's the element of the person wanting to care, but for me, I had to really look at what is the reason for that. And usually it's because we don't want somebody else to suffer. And what happens actually deep down inside, it's actually our own suffering that's being mirrored back to us. It's a really interesting, like if you look at it. So it's like I might feel guilty because somebody else is in pain, or maybe they're on the streets. And so the judgment is their suffering, right? But what if actually they're not, like, again, it's letting go of the judgment and the criticism, because the judgment causes more stress within the body and the mind. The reason I'm bringing this up is because so many people who are in that social work type of field are a caregiver, or in a caregiver type of role. So they either grew up that way, or it's the desire to alleviate. So this is why I'm saying underneath it is the desire to alleviate their own suffering, but they're doing it's external, but it's being mirrored to them, right? So I could see that, even for myself, well, you're suffering, so I need to come and help you. And then there's the Jesus complex, right? So, which, Katya and I talked about recently, and I mean, I had it, I still have it sometimes, right? And it's like, because what was ingrained in me is you are Jesus with skin on, right? And so then there's the whole thing of the sacrificing, right? And so this is the whole thing around the burnout piece, is the constant sacrificing and self-abandonment. But it alleviates something sort of initially, but truly we end up actually abandoning ourselves. So I'm not saying everybody's doing that, but I'm saying that's a very common sort of theme, is sort of living from that sort of obligatory type of response, to life. And then we become angry and resentful and full of fatigue, because we're not really being our authentic self. We're not really being in that space where we're serving ourselves, and then we can serve others from the place of where we're not abandoning ourselves. And so it's very, very common within the social work field. This is very, very, it's all interconnected, which is, but it's taken me this long to be able to like really see what's behind my desire to help people. We have the desire to do it, but underneath it actually is, I'm trying to alleviate something within me that is saying that I'm suffering.
Wow, that's like a mind bend. I'm like,
I know, I'm like, okay, that was like pretty deep, but
I think that's our theme for this week is the suffering and pointing it out. Don't you think?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like definitely. Oh, this week for sure it has been, especially because I'm helping somebody right now with their branding, and she is all about softening suffering. Now, it's very specific in the way she says it, that she's not trying to alleviate suffering, because suffering is a human experience, only that she's just here to soften it. And I thought, what a beautiful expression.
Yeah, that is beautiful. But see, in softening, you're not the person who's completely alleviating that person's suffering, right? Again, it's the framing, how we use words. There's a frequency that's associated with every word we use. So that's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And when I went for my men's retreat, one of the themes was that we all suffer. It's just a matter of us choosing what suffering that we will endure.
Yes.
Do you go to the gym? Do you sacrifice and not eat potato chips? Do you work, do you work out? Like, do you punish yourself by lifting these weights and getting stronger? Or are you going to suffer by laying on the couch, eating chips and watching your health degrade? Either way, it's going to be a suffering. Like, you're going to be miserable and sweaty working out, or you're going to be miserable and unhealthy not working out. So
Yeah.
A or B.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's that reframe, right? This particular type of like sacrificing or suffering, as you're talking about, is actually going to really produce the results, right? So it's delayed gratification, right? As opposed to I'm just suffering. Again, it's a very different, type of thing. So I love that you bring that in, and they're bringing it up in a men's retreat. That's amazing.
Oh, for sure. And I would say men are very guilty of suffering in silence.
Absolutely.
And before you know it, and I would say there, it's crazy to me how many men are isolated now, especially after the last 4 or 5 years. It's crazy how many guys don't have like a circle of friends. Maybe they have one friend, if that.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you get married and you have kids and you're going through all these things, you're sacrificing your relationships in order to take care of your home. And next thing you know, you haven't nurtured your friendships.
Right.
So,
And
and
so then here you are, 40s, 50s, right? And you're like, I'm kind of needing to start. It's almost a starting over in so many ways with the relationships. And as we get older, it's harder to start over. It's harder to like, I've been in the same space where I'm like, I had a situation around my birthday and it was in December and just something was going on with my friends. Some of them were away. There was various things that were going on. And it was actually a real point of pain, but it brought beautiful healing for me. But I realized I'm like, wow, I need some more friends. Like, I need to say what I want to do if I really want to, right? And not expect somebody to come up with the idea. I was married before, so that was always, that person always, did something for me, which was very kind, and sometimes surprise things and all those kinds of things. But then when you're single, it's a totally different element in itself too. And so for those who are going through, a situation similar to mine, or, you've been single, not in a relationship, then creating those relationships can be even more challenging sometimes as well, but just as challenging even within a marriage because of the fact that we've kind of, you kind of lose touch, or you've lost certain aspects, you've put aside certain aspects of yourself in order to keep things moving forward within the family unit. So yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity for growth though, like that our pain points are such beautiful opportunities for healing if we will allow them to be. It's like, wow, I need some more connections here. Like, right. So that means I got to try new things. That's uncomfortable. That means it's like dating all over again, right? It's like I got to start, you got to build a relationship and you don't have the same level of trust with somebody that you've known for like 15 years. It's like, you're not completely starting over, but it's kind of that feeling, right? So, and as we get older, we trust less, right? We're less open typically because of our wounds.
sure.
And I think because of just how old we are, it's like, we have a certain amount of time left. I don't want to mess around with the wrong people.
There's that too, yeah. Like,
You know,
come on, let's get to it. Like, let's, no messing around.
right?
You put filters on your search
Well,
immediately.
I'm making myself a card that says, okay, Scorpio sun, Virgo moon, like are we compatible? Are you interested in taking this on?
Right. Yeah. Can you take me on? Can I take you on? That's hilarious. I love it.
I'm
Oh.
still wondering if I can. I don't know.
If you could take me on?
Yeah.
I think you
Good
could.
luck.
There's days where I just hide in the garage, I tell you.
Oh, that's
So,
hilarious. I
Which
love
days
it.
are those,
yes,
dear?
that would be the PMS episode. Please go back and watch that one.
Right. Yeah.
So would you say that you see an equal amount of men and women, or is it more women? Is it more men?
I would say overall, I see mostly women, although the men category is sort of growing a little bit. Even with readings, sometimes I'm surprised at who comes. I've had male financial planners come. I've had somebody who was like an artist from like in Vancouver, and they like, no, but not knowing who they really are in terms of what they do. And so what's really interesting, I would say too, is that the whole professional field is really opening up to energy work, opening up to like even just meditation and like, just starting to explore more things. And I think that's happening for men. Again, it comes back to the conditioning, right? So and we really need that divine, healthy masculine, really. Like that really needs to be there. And we've been in such a, patriarchal type of, matrix, and we need that softened aspect. We need the feminine, we need the leadership from the feminine, but from a place of softness that really invites the masculine in to be who they are. So I feel like this is also part of it, is like if women are trying to control too much, or the feminine energy is trying to control, then it doesn't allow the masculine energy to rise. It doesn't allow men to become who they are either. So there's a part that we all play in really inviting, men, but also just that healthy masculine energy. But it's got to be healed first. And I think this is a big part of it, is the willingness to be seen, right? The willingness to be witnessed, right? And understanding the value of that. So, but I am starting to see more of the more men or masculine coming in. And sometimes it's the women who are functioning very masculine out of survival. That's why I'm talking about masculine feminine energy, because they're functioning from a survival, but it's very masculine oriented. And we need both.
Yeah, I think there's been so much confusion about masculine and feminine from the outside that a lot of us have had to sit and think, okay, wait a minute, what does feminine energy actually feel like? And where is the masculine within me in that? Like, what is the interplay? And then for him too, like men have to sit and think, okay, well, we have been severely attacked in the past few decades, right? So what does it mean to be masculine, and how does the masculine serve in a way that allows the feminine also?
The pendulum is so extreme, right? In the old days, it was the man was everything and the woman was nothing, which is not right. And now it's just like, okay, we're going to cut your balls off, and you just keep your mouth shut in the corner. And it's like, we can't have that either.
No, that's right.
Yeah, it's because we're almost reaping what we sow now, with a bunch of weak men trying to lead, but not having the balls to do it.
Yeah.
That's not good either.
No. And then there's also there's literally stuff within foods and things like that actually cause a shift within the hormonal aspects of the male as well. So you have that whole piece, just that, there's that piece that's at play with all of this endocrine disruption. Same for
We'll get you on the other podcast for that, and we'll talk conspiracy.
Okay. So I'll hold that then.
It's good. But it's important for everybody to know that there's actually chemicals in our processed foods that are like chemically castrating people and changing things.
Yeah. And the thing is that it is known. The government knows about it. It's, and I get that a lot of this stuff that's in the food, they're food stabilizers, right? Like I just made, just as an example, I thought, man, I'm so tired of all the oils that are put in these healthy almond milk and silk and all this kind of stuff. And, but it's also full of stuff, of oils that are causing endocrine disruption. And so I thought, I'm going to make my own. Do you know how many almonds, how much it takes to just make a small little bottle?
I was just talking to her about that.
And it doesn't sit well in the coffee. And I'm just like, oh, that's frustrating. Okay, I got to find another way, right? So I understand some of the reasoning behind it, but it's still not great because they're not necessarily looking out for our best interest either,
right.
And so
they're looking for shelf life. They're trying to make everybody happy.
Yeah, but there literally are things that are like that's happening within the body systems, right? Like that, where it's actually affected. And then we have these weakened aspects of the unhealthy masculine, unhealthy feminine. Do you want to talk about what the difference is, or maybe you talked about that? Yeah. So just in general, so we need both. We have both the masculine and feminine energies within us. We have testosterone, we have estrogen, we have these various different types of hormones at different levels within the body. But in terms of like speaking about the energy, and when we're saying healthy feminine, healthy, masculine, what we're really talking about is the feminine energy is intuitive. It's the part of us where we're connecting with our intuition. It's in flow. It's a creative type of energy. It's where the bright ideas like in the middle of the night come from, or in the shower. Those are often two of the best, right? It's like, oh, ding, you get this this idea. And in order for the feminine energy to work well, it needs to be in that place of like safety and peace, and be allowing it to be sort of in that sort of what I would call like the river. It's a flowing. It's kind of more going downstream, right? The masculine energy is very productive. It's the stuff that gets shit done. I hope you don't mind me saying that. But that's the energy that gets things done. It's the ability to make a decision, and then to put the wheels, to actually bring it in to make it happen. So this is why we need both, but we need to know what are we using for what thing, right? And so this is where we need to support, and we need to invite the feminine. We need to invite that feminine, like the creative flow. There's an element of leadership, deep knowing. In fact, actually, in some of the ancient civilizations, it was the females or the women, the queen, who actually who were leading some of the tribes. And in many cases, from some of the research that I've done, there was a lot less fighting, actually, a lot less wars, because the women would lead from that deep inner knowing from the womb, their intuitive aspect, and so they would provide some leadership and guidance and wisdom. And then you have the masculine being invited as well to provide a level of leadership, but not from a place of control. So, right. And so this is where things get out of whack when we're living in survival, which I think the majority of society is, where you were talking about. It's like push, 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 push. Everybody in the household's working. You might have 3, 4 cars. You got to work. You got to like all the things, and everybody's having to contribute with very little space to reflect. And this is where the feminine energy, can really help support us in that intuitive part. And it's not just in females, it's in males as well, right? Guys often call that like that gut type of knowing, right? But some of that is also connected to instincts, which we won't get into. But the point is that, we all have the ability to connect and know what is needed in each situation. So like with your wife, she might need you to be softer, kinder, speak a little softer to her, as opposed to like, come on, honey, pull yourself together. Let's go get, when she's having a moment, and vice versa. She might be able to fix the kitchen sink, for example, but she may want to invite, I'm just as an example. It's like some
Do
women
not
are,
push that button, Crystal. Please do not press that button, because I will tell you stories.
that's like where she's trying to fix stuff. But the point is, the point with what I'm saying is that part of the job, I think, of the feminine, a healthy feminine invites the masculine in. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Without conditions. It's like there's an invitation. It's not weakness, it's meekness, right? So we see the feminine as being weak. It's not weak.
I think some of our best marriage moments are when Kathy's extremely, extremely creative, and she gives me this vision, and then I get to go and build it.
Right.
She feels
That's
great
amazing.
because she has this dream, and I feel great because I get to build it. And I mean, I still stand back and look at the things that I built, and it makes me feel good that I
Yeah.
made this dream of hers come true. I love that. I think that's one of my
That's
favorite things about
awesome.
us.
What I would also say though is there's moments where you have these incredible creative visions, and then it comes to me and it's up to me to bring it forth,
Hmm.
through process or hard work or something. We have that balance. So because both of us are working so hard on this healthy balance of masculine and feminine within, it allows for a healthy masculine feminine outside of ourselves as well.
Right. That's amazing
I
that
think
you
that the more
can.
imbalanced you are, your relationships become imbalanced as well. As long
Right.
as that other person is willing to do the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest thing that has such a huge impact on this is the feeling of safety, right? So we have to learn how to create safety within ourselves and then within our relationships. And most of us, this is something we don't know how to do, which I find is actually a lot of what I'm doing is teaching people how to reset their feeling of internal safety, because we have fundamental needs to feel safe physically, mentally, emotionally, and we can't really be that healthy masculine feminine without the feeling of safety. So I would say too that it sounds to me like, and the sense that I have is, you guys have worked really hard to create that level of safety so that you can both be fully expressed authentically in a way that is really meaningful to both of you, where you both feel you're contributing, and that if things are not going that way, you also have the ability to communicate that and go, okay, what do we need to do to adjust that, right? So kudos to you guys, because you're leading the way for so many people in relationships so they can really see what that looks like. And you're doing it on screen. And I love the little bits that I've watched of you guys over the last little bit. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, I love the banter. I love the fun. I love the seriousness. Like, you guys really bring that, and you're showing people what a healthy type of relationship, can look like. And not only that, you're working together. So that's a whole other dynamic in itself of working together, in your, not only your life, but your business too.
Our biggest mistake is not recording everything, because we have missed so many hilariously epic arguments. And I'm like, that would have been an Oscar for sure.
An Oscar.
I would have gotten a Golden Globe for that performance.
That's amazing.
I've never heard anybody make the observation that we've provided a safe space for each other to express ourselves the way we need to. So I really appreciate that piece.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming with me going forward from now on. But it's very true that I can be a complete and total mess because I know I'm safe to do that. Right. And so can he. He can totally have an epic meltdown, and he is safe to do that.
One of my biggest takeaways, Crystal, is when you were talking about when you're a social worker and you're watching the homeless people and you're watching them suffer, you're actually mirroring your own suffering back. And I think that so many of us do that, including us in our old life before we did the work. And that's how we got to the point where we were sick and burnt out, and we just had to blow our lives up and change something. But
blow it up. Yeah.
But the part of me still hurts for the world that hasn't woken up. And we hear about these people, these couples out there, and they're working themselves to death, and they're extremely successful, but at the cost of their health, their relationship with each other, with their children. So many people are sacrificing everything for, I don't even know what, for money, for a job status that cares nothing about you. If you died, they'd replace you tomorrow. This world drives me crazy sometimes. Mm-hmm. And the part of me that wants to save it all gets frustrated that I can't.
Yeah.
That's my rant.
I hear you. I felt the same way. And I think the biggest gift that we can give to other people is our example and life lived, that there's another way to live. Because, part of kind of what I was referring to before is, when we're in that place where we may be taking on what somebody else's life I've lived vicariously, I've had vicarious trauma even through people because of some of the things that they've experienced, right? And of course I don't want them to suffer, right? But deep down, I know, because I've really looked, I'm like, oh, there's a part of me that feels like I don't want to suffer in that way. And so I would try to save somebody else from doing that. But what happens is we get into this sort of victim consciousness is what happens. So we actually step from the place of feeling empowered, and we actually disempower ourselves by actually kind of coming down or stooping to that level. Yeah. And it's not even that they may not even perceive themselves as a victim. Some people don't. And I'm not saying that. It's really our belief or our judgment, the perception, oh, you're a victim, so I need to come down. I need to help you. I got to save you. And instead, the best way that we can serve one another actually is by remaining in that space. So we actually provide, in a way, what I would call an umbrella of a different level of consciousness, that if that person was ready, they could come into that. So we give them empathy instead of feeling sorry for them. We give them compassion, right, instead of sympathy, right? They're very different. Sympathy is, I feel sorry for you. Oh my goodness, you poor thing, right? As opposed to empowering them and wow, yeah, that is a really difficult situation. And I'm sorry that you're going through this, and I'm here with you. You have my support, and sometimes it's a little bit, sometimes it's just a smile. Sometimes it's those small things, but we do a disservice to others by actually coming down into that victim consciousness, because the world is full of it as it is, right? The
Right.
world is full of it. And the truth is that there's another level of consciousness or another way to be able to perceive life. And instead, actually, what is more empowering is to go to look at a homeless person and go, wow, I appreciate that this is a part of your journey and that you are this strong. You are so strong, right? We think it's weakness, right? We might perceive that as a weakness, you poor thing. But actually, to appreciate whatever that person is going through, that is a part of their journey, and the reality of that is that the higher self or the soul is helping them to evolve through this journey, even through their suffer what we would perceive as suffering. So a lot of what we are feeling is there are beliefs and perceptions about things, and what happens is we lose the gratitude and the appreciation for the strength that it takes for someone to be experiencing what they're experiencing.
That was for you.
That's my huge takeaway. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, well, my pleasure. What else can I do, But
No,
I'm here to serve. I would just
it's
tease you.
true though. Like I would say that there's lots. I think the conspiracy behind this, Gen X, when we were kids, we'd be watching TV and all of a sudden they'd throw on Africa for no apparent reason on the TV. And it's like you're going around playing with your toys and now all of a sudden you feel bad because there's kids in Africa starving. What do I know as a 5-year-old about Africa and what those people are going through, other than the
Right.
TV's telling me that they're all dying and starving to death, and I got to go convince my mom and dad that they got to send money that probably wasn't even going to get to those people to save them.
Right. Right. It's interesting because the manipulation starts so early, right?
Right. Yeah.
You're more privileged than this person, therefore, whatever you have, you should give away. I
Right.
mean, I lived that way for me. I was a missionary. So like everything was about if I have it, I have to give it. And you just bring up such an interesting point, right? It's like the conditioning in that and the manipulation to give, right? It is a form of control or manipulation through, television, through the matrix. And again, if you gave from your heart, it would be freeing and liberating, as opposed to like, I feel sorry for you. And so
Right.
now I need to save you. And then, of course, realizing years later that most of that money, unfortunately, probably doesn't even get to that person or to the people that it's meant to help.
Hmm.
It is a very sad thing.
And it's still going on. Look at
And it's still
Ukraine.
happening. Yeah.
Just the biggest money laundering operation that's ever
Yeah.
happened, and
Yeah.
nobody's held accountable.
Yeah. And
Crazy.
again, perspectives and perceptions even about that whole war situation is very different. I know someone who, has been connected. I can't say a whole lot, but I'll say this, that some of the perspective of those who are or were in the Ukraine when Russia came in was a celebration of liberation for them, because finally they were being rescued. And I'm telling you on good authority, but I can't share
Sure.
anything more. But I'm saying again, we're shown a certain persona or perception about things.
Right.
But again, most of it is smoke and mirrors. And
Right.
the true reality of like what's actually happening on the ground is very different in
The
any
narrative
situation.
that they push, I mean, we should all know by now that the news pushes a certain narrative. And either
Yeah.
you go along with it and you're normal or you go against it and you're conspiracy theorist. But
Yes.
I
Yeah.
would still say that innocent people are the always the victim.
Of course. Of
So,
course. On both sides. This is
both
the
sides.
thing. It's like it's not a win-win for everybody here.
Right.
This is a everybody's losing no matter what side you're on, right? And so this is where we got to step into that higher level of consciousness and understand, right, that actually not everything is as it seems, no matter what we're being told, and that not everybody even on the ground thinks it's a bad idea of what's actually happening, right? It's just interesting because there are some people who really celebrated their liberation because of the level of the corruption taking place, and I mean, every country has it, but There's just so many things happening behind the scenes that, and this is why we have to kind of like not go down into that victim, like, oh my goodness, you poor thing. We actually don't serve the consciousness of humankind by coming into the victim mentality. It's actually by going, okay, how is this going to serve? Like, yes, it's painful. Yes, we give empathy. Yes, like, but at the same time, it's not really affecting your day-to-day life, is it?
No.
And so this is why it's like, so how is knowing all of that helping and supporting your daily life? Most of it's not. It actually brings us down into that victim consciousness and we get stuck. And so then, so this is, it's the thing of keeping people disempowered through fear and control, right? And
I'm
that's
sure
part of
that
the
that's
nature.
TV's and social media's primary job.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
It's one big movie. It's just a movie. It's just a boring movie, y'all.
That's why
It's a
they call it
boring movie.
programming.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You want to hit her with some question?
Well, so well, actually, before I get to this
Sure.
question, I
Sure.
kind of want to know what has been your greatest experience in helping somebody through their pain or their suffering, or, like, what is your favorite story? What have you learned, and that also helped that person?
hmm Oh my goodness, there's so many. I have two that I'll share, and they're probably more recent, like they're recent. Um, so I had a situation where somebody really close to me was in a really volatile situation and just in the cycle of abuse and trauma. Them and then also on the receiving end, right? And so finally one day, a little while ago, I was able to have a conversation with this person, and because there are children involved in the situation as well, and knowing what I know, right? I'm responsible for what I know, and so I had the conversation with this person. I was very gentle, and we were just having. I was kind, but I also understood the seriousness, and I wasn't sure that they could see that just yet. And long story short, I basically encouraged them, you take responsibility for you, so that I don't have to, because this is a situation where I, knowing what I know, and the children not having a voice, you know, I become responsible to be their voice. So I'm asking you to be their voice. You know, and so it was this, thing, it was just, it's a mess. And long story short, through the conversation, the person finally agreed to remove themselves from the situation, and which actually is really beautiful. And I recently had another conversation with them, and it's been really difficult for everyone. But the bottom line is that it was a situation where, in the relationship, the person feels like they're crazy almost because the other person is in such denial about what is actually happening, and that was a normal part of their upbringing or whatever, and that's safety survival mode. And this person is going, I feel like I'm crazy because they're saying that that's not what actually happened. And I said, here's the bottom line. You know how you are in that situation. You know how you feel. Now you take responsibility. It doesn't even matter what is even being said at this point in time. If it is that volatile for you, and if you feel this way, then all it's going to take is one more thing, and somebody's leaving in handcuffs, or something really serious is going to happen. And this person just went, oh, because I said, what would you do if you saw that happening? What would you do? And they're like, well, I would try to get the person away from them, or I would call the police. And I said, right. So I was very gently initially starting with that. What would you do if you saw that happening? And then bringing it like, okay, this is happening. So now it's your turn to take responsibility, to do what you know you need to do. And it is scary and it's unknown. But in the unknown, I'm like, you don't know how good it can get. And this is a part of like what I heard Spirit say for them. It's like, you don't even know how good life can be, because it's scary to step into the unknown. Amazingly, this person has stepped into the unknown. They went, packed their stuff, removed themselves that day. They phoned me and said, I just want to thank you so much. You really helped me see how serious this is. And then they commented to a couple other people, and those people told me, just so you know, this person told me that when you said this, that they really saw it, they really got it. And so the beauty of this is through that situation and the conversation, I was very gentle, but I was very firm. And I'm like, if you don't, then I have to. So please don't, let's not get to that point. And they're feeling better because they've actually removed themselves from the situation. And now the conversation is, now I can be different. I can be different for my kids. I can reset the stage because, right, in a toxic situation, there's no healing. You can't move. You've tried, you've done everything you possibly can. You've all tried and it's not working, right? And so you can't heal. And so this was that was one of the most recent ones. And
There's
then do we have
healing.
time for one more
Oh yeah,
short
for
one?
sure. But I just want to
Go
say,
ahead.
I don't want to forget that I heard there's healing or there's possibility in the unknown. I love that because when you're
Yeah.
in it, the unknown is so far away and seems so impossible. But to have
Yeah.
someone come in and say, no, no, the possibility is in the unknown, just head in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and lots of times people are like, I can't hear my guides. I can't hear them talking to me. How come, like, what's going on? And oftentimes it's because we've shut down or because they've already told us, we've already received guidance or our higher self or our own intuition, and we stop listening. I'm like, you're in survival. That's why you can't hear them.
Hmm.
Go back and do what you already know to do. And I'll tell you, this is exactly what happened with this particular person. They're like, I'm screaming at my guides, asking them to show me what to do. And I'm like, would you like to know why you're not hearing them? And they're like, rhetorically, they're like, because they've already told me what to do and I haven't listened to them.
We all
And
know
I'm like,
asked and answered.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, was that rhetorical or like, is that the answer? And I'm like, no, that's the answer. You already know what to do. What's amazing is once I said, go do the thing that you know to do, and then you'll hear them again. And they just told me today, they're like, I just had this most amazing experience that this is going to be okay. The situation is going to be okay. My kids are going to be okay. Like they had like such like beautiful, confident messages, right? And so, and they're feeling better because they've chosen to remove themselves despite the situation. So last story, I'll just share this. I recently had a referral from somebody, speaking of the Ukraine, in the Ukraine. And it's a bit of a convoluted story, but the point is that so sometimes I just do sessions for the person and then I send them the recording. This one had to be interpreted by a family member because they only speak their language, not English. And anyway, and they had a really complicated medical situation. Maybe I mentioned this to you when I saw you. But so in the last 2 weeks, I've done a couple sessions for this person. But after the first session, I felt like he needs 3 days, and he was completely had his lower body, no, like complete paralysis in the lower body, and not even able to feel like when he had to go to the bathroom except maybe to poop. But he couldn't feel pee. He had a catheter in for like 3 months. We know those are very uncomfortable. And anyway, long story short, very complicated medical situation, heart issues, all kinds of stuff. So he couldn't even do any rehab. And he had surgery as well on his thoracic spine. But it was 3 months he had been in paralysis. And it was just an all of a sudden, like one day, boom, just like that. Couldn't feel anything, couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And so they did surgery and it still didn't help. And long story short, they're like, we don't know what to do. So another client of mine referred this person and their family to me. And I did a session. And I said, let's see how this person's doing in 3 days. And so I contacted them and they said, actually, amazingly, he's starting to feel reflexes and he can just move his feet just a little bit, like controlled, like voluntary movement,
Right.
a tiny
Wow.
bit to his feet. And then they've pulled since then I've done 2 sessions, but they've pulled the catheter out. And again, we're dealing with belief systems. We're letting go of emotions, like it's physical, mental, emotional, all the things, spiritual. And so and the family member confirmed so many things that came up in the session. Oh, he was just complaining about that, and this was this, and I was picking up that he had a virus in his back, and she goes, yeah, actually, he did have a virus, but they couldn't figure out what it was. All these amazing confirmations. And this guy is about to start doing rehabilitation now. He's actually can pull his legs up to his body now voluntarily. And he had none of that before. And so this is the miraculous that can happen in terms of what's really possible for our physical, mental well-being as well. So I'm like doing the happy dance over here, it's like that's like a really extreme story and just so many, but this one here just recent, and I'm just like, wow. And I feel that, as we change, then other people have other shifts too. And so I feel like that's part of it, is I'm responsible as a practitioner to do my own work, and that in doing my own work, then what happens is the caliber and the type of people that I see and the miracles that happen also happen on a much deeper level, because I've also gone deeper. So this is where it's that collaborative, work that we do with one another.
That's amazing and so true, because after our session, it's not just me that now I'm awakened and I'm able to 2025, the perspective for me has shifted. Well, it's done the same for him. Like, because when,
Awesome.
I'm rising, he comes with me.
Of course. Yes. Yeah, your energy affects each other, right? How you feel affects each other. It's beautiful. I'm excited for you guys. It's only, up from here. Not
Right?
in a bad way though.
Yeah. Right? Exactly.
In a good way.
So every time we have a guest on, we ask them to leave a question for the upcoming guest.
Ooh.
So yesterday, or not, a couple of days ago, we had Sandy Mulroy on. I don't know if you know her. She does sound bowls and
I've heard
meditation.
of, I think, but I don't know her.
She's local. She's lovely. She's an astrologer, which is why we had her
Okay.
on, because I love that kind of stuff. So she left a
Beautiful.
question for you. Not that she knew that it was going to be you. Where do you look to get inspired?
Boy, that is a kind of a loaded question, because it's
We
my
like
first
loaded
answer.
questions here.
Yeah, my first answer would be within, actually. I would go within, but inspiration often comes externally as well, right? Because when we see a need, we go, how can I help? How can I serve or support that? So, yeah, like that is a really tough question. It's a bit of both, I would say. But within, to see if it's really aligned for me, right? Because I'm not interested in doing something if it's not really in alignment. And if it's going to have, if it's not going to have energy on it, right, then I'm going to be demotivated. So a lot of, inspiration will come from within. And most of it has come through my healing, because I'm gentler on myself. It's coming from that place of more curiosity, more play, less judgment, less criticism, right? So then I'm open. So that's why I'm saying kind of within, because it's really that inspiration has come as I've done the healing to allow that space. I'm very comfortable with just being in my own presence now, whereas I wasn't for many, many years, when I was younger and in my teens and 30s. But now it's like I love relationships, and I used to get a lot of energy, and I still do, because I'm very extroverted. But I'm much more comfortable going within now, and really connecting with my higher self as well, my guides. Hmm.
That's a good answer.
Very
And
good.
you're right, complicated.
It is, because yeah, because again, it's the mirroring, right? What there is a problem. What's the problem that I could solve? How could I soften somebody else's suffering? How could I make things a little bit better, for the world? But as I do that, I'm really doing that for myself. I'm really in service to myself, right? We are in service to ourselves really first, because we are, that's just kind of how it works,
And
really.
we don't hear that
So,
nearly enough. I think that every morning we wake up and we should say, I'm in service to myself. Because
yeah.
from that place, now I can be of service in the right way to somebody else.
Totally, totally.
And
I really encourage people to even just take 5 minutes every morning to just go inward and just go, how are you doing today? Right? Talk to yourself. How are you doing today? How do we feel? What do we want? What would we like today? And just, I call those like, and just you do that little thing. And maybe it's just like just going out for coffee. right? Or a little walk, and you do that little thing. And this is what I'm talking about. The external happens because you get inspiration as you follow what I call the breadcrumbs of joy, right? They're like little breadcrumbs. And if you follow that little inkling and meet that inner need, then, within sometimes maybe you have a very full day, but 5 minutes of meeting your own need and nurturing yourself and talking to that part of you that just might be like, I don't feel like showing up today. Right. And it's like, okay, it's okay. I give you permission. This is what I talked. I just say, I give you permission to not show up today. What do you want to do? I just want to lay on the couch, and I'll visualize that part of me that is needing that kind of nurturing. Okay, no problem. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. You go lay on the couch. What do you want? A blanket? I like right. So I go through it doesn't take long, but a few minutes. It's like, okay, you go to sleep. It's okay. I'll do that. I'm going to show up, but this part of me gets to rest and be nurtured today. And what is amazing is, even though it's all, I'm talking to these various versions of myself, it's still me, right? And so I'm really meeting the need through visualization, through kind of like allowing myself to feel what it feels like to just like, oh, just go lay down and have a nap. And the other part of me, adult me, goes, it's okay. You don't have to do anything today. I'm going to do that part, right? I can show up. And so what's amazing about that is such a beautiful gift, because we can nurture ourselves, and then we actually will have the energy to show up better, more authentic, more real, stronger, because we're really meeting what we're going inward and doing the inward work first. Serve yourself first, damn it.
Yeah.
If there's anything that I've learned, it's that.
Right. Like I want to pinpoint the moment where it was like, stop being selfish, sacrifice yourself for the greater good. I want to know where that started to get ingrained. Because I mean, as children, we're very, I would say, narcissistic. We care about our own needs, and then somewhere along the lines, the pendulum swung the opposite way, and forget all about your needs and just serve others. And it's gotta be somewhere in the middle where you're not just constantly trying to please yourself and nobody else. It's very much of a put the mask on, the oxygen mask on the plane, and then go save the world.
I literally just had the conversation with this person just before you and I talked about that very thing. Put your own mask on first, and so that you can, because otherwise you're no good to anybody else. Right. But I think a lot of the whole sacrificing, I'll just say this, is is very connected to our survival. So that trauma or survival type of response, because you need to please other people in order to be safe or to have some form of attachment or get what you need. So we learn as children, from a very, very young age, be quiet, don't speak up, don't say what, so there's this thing of that, it's the pleasing. And so this is where we start abandoning ourselves, because we're also not shown that it's okay for us oftentimes to be our true self. And a lot of times it's just not safe. It's not safe to be that way. And this is why I find a lot of the work that I'm doing is helping people to create safety so that they really can be their authentic self, which really is putting the mask on themselves first, right? The oxygen mask.
We're so hard. We're trying so hard to be normal.
I know. And what's normal anyway?
Right? That's one of our episodes. Is this normal?
I love it.
Stop being normal. Everybody else is taken. Just be you.
Yeah. Easier said than done, because
that
all that conditioning,
Absolutely.
It is a interesting journey. I would say that some days it's a pain in the ass, but some days it's like, well, at least they got purpose. I'm on this journey to undo a lot of the crap and hopefully have a better road for my kids to travel down.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what question would you leave for the next person?
Oh, so I was thinking a little bit about this. So I'm not sure how to ask this question, but you were just talking about something really interesting, but it's connected to our sense of purpose. And what would I say? I've had moments when I've felt really so maybe I'm not sure how to actually say the question yet. So I'm just, you're okay if I just process for a second?
Yeah, we'll work.
So I've had times when, especially over the last year, when I've not wanted to be here. I'm not suicidal, but I also don't want to be here. Like, it's just too hard. It's too hard. I'm too tired. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to go. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so in some way it's kind of connected to purpose. Um, and I think a lot of people are kind of feeling that kind of thing. It's like, I don't want to be here. This is just too hard. Like, it's just too hard. Some days are hard, some days are great, right? But I've had some moments like that, and it's kind of a pattern. So I think my question is connected to like, what sort of pattern, um, what pattern are you walking out of as you move into your purpose, if that makes sense? So it's kind of like, I see it kind of like a figure eight,
Mhm.
like the infinity sign. So it's like, what are you moving out of and bringing balance to in your life that is allowing you to step more fully into your purpose? There we go.
It's funny though how this question and the people that we ask it to, and then the next one, it's almost like that person needed that question.
Cool.
Or
Yeah,
it's the perfect question for that person. It's very interesting how we're
yeah,
all connected.
absolutely. It really is. It really is. It really is quite amazing, actually.
Maybe that's what makes our podcast better than everyone else's.
Right?
It's
There you
definitely not
go.
your
We're just
humility.
It's
so
definitely not
connected.
that. No.
Good Lord.
You
Oh,
guys make the podcast, so it's you, it's your energy, it's what you bring to the table, right? And then you
And
invite somebody else to the table.
it feels
Thank you.
good. And honestly, the most surprised, and I'm not a like, he's been doing podcasting for years. Years?
a year and a half,
A
yeah.
year and a half. But his other podcast is gigantic. Their following is enormous. Um, you know,
Enormous. Yeah,
enormous. But I
I
am
love it.
new to this, and what I didn't realize was how much healing I was getting from having these conversations. I'm like,
Hmm.
now I understand why you're podcasting.
Right. Yeah. Well,
It's
and this it's the expression, it's the ability to speak what has been unspoken, right? This
yeah.
is so much of what is happening right now is everybody is moving into this phase, like even just generally the phase of I get to be me and I get to express and I get to bring myself to the table. It also means we're working through our shit because, we have a lot of things that create that feeling of stuckness. We're not really stuck, it's just a perception, a belief, but the healing that is happening is so astronomical right now, and there's room at the table for everyone,
And I think
right?
that real people are way more interesting than any celebrity or any fake actor.
Hmm.
The things that we're going through are what everyone else is going through. The stuff that's
Yeah,
on
it's real.
TV and that's all fake. That's all. Don't I don't like I was so surprised that the Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I think it was like 20 seasons. And
Wow.
right? It's like
I've never watched it,
Me
so
no,
neither.
who watches this? But at the same time, the opportunity has arisen that
hmm.
now there's this huge void in the stratosphere, and we will come in and fill it for all those people that are missing the Kardashians. They can now watch us go through the shit and fix it all,
I
and it
love
will
it.
be
I
real. It
love
won't
it.
be scripted.
Yeah.
It won't be
Yeah.
scripted.
I love it. I think people really align so much to just the real, raw, authentic you, because it's so relatable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
and it will be. I mean, this is almost like having a journal.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably cringe in 2 or 3 years to go back to episode one and be like, "Oh my goodness, who is that dork?" And it's funny because I was just on a podcast last night with a big audience, and we were live streaming, and I had this bit where I unzipped my shirt and we started dancing, and I'm like, and I even said on that podcast, when I'm an old man and I look back at 45-year-old me, that I was that playful and hilarious that I would still do something so dumb and
Yeah.
embarrassing for my grandkids to probably find on YouTube one day.
Right?
Like,
Like he went public with that?
right?
I love
It's
it.
and I didn't even grease my body. Oh man,
Oh, opportunity
I
missed.
should have
Oh.
pre-greased. That's what all
Well,
the
you could
bodybuilders
always do a
do,
redo. You could always do a redo. Like
Right. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh my
here's
goodness.
part two, the sexier version, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
all
yeah.
greased up.
That well, it was sort of scripted, but not scripted enough. Obviously, I've missed some very important pieces of the puzzle.
Obviously.
I'm sorry, everyone out there in YouTube land. I'm sorry. Crystal, it was so awesome getting to have some time with you. I know we went a little bit over time, but you were just awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's you. I think the same about you guys. So we're so awesome. We connect. No, just kidding.
Where can everyone find you? Because obviously everybody needs to know you as much as they need to know us.
Right. Okay. So a couple places. I'm on YouTube. So Crystal Sayers, Crystal Sayers, Sayers. You'll find me on YouTube, and I go live there. I've kind of taken a bit of a break, but I'm going live there as well. And then I also have a website. You can go to www.newbeginningshw.ca. So it just stands for New Beginnings Health and Wellness.
Okay.
So I'm also on Facebook as well. So Crystal Sayers and New Beginnings Health and Wellness as well. So
Perfect.
yeah.
That's awesome. Everybody has to hit you up, and you would recommend Crystal in a heartbeat, wouldn't you?
100%.
Oh, thank
And
you.
that's coming from a Scorpio. We choose who we're loyal to. So
I feel
You know
very
how-
honored. Thank
I just
you.
wanted to say, I usually turn the camera off for this part, but I'll say I held back so hard a really good diaper joke on you. Like,
on me,
yeah, when you said you were pooing your brains out, I was like, I had to change a lot of diapers.
thanks, dear.
Oh, that is
I
hilarious.
tried to hold back, but now I can be a little bit less
You
serious.
for
don't
it.
have to hold back
Yeah,
on my
totally.
account. You
No,
know?
because we were serious at that point, but now it's like, okay, I had to change a lot of diapers. Crazy
Any
man.
parent can relate to that. So
Right?
I'm
The
sure it'll be
unpleasantness of
fine.
it.
Yes. I can't
Love
wait
it.
for our senior days.
There we go. Yeah, back to diaper changing days.
I'll be here. I'll be there for you, baby.
Thank you.
Yes. And with that, we'll call this one a successful wrap. And we'll see you guys next time.